Mic down. Like there, is that about right? Okay. Welcome. Good morning, and welcome to First Parish in Framingham. We are a welcoming congregation. So whomever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. We welcome you here in this meeting house, or on Zoom, or wherever and whenever you may be watching this service in the future. My name is Deborah Dubourdieu. I use she, hers pronouns, and I am your worship associate this morning. I serve on the Long Range Planning Committee of the Board of Assessors. Please be sure to read the announcements in the order of service. Immediately following worship, you are invited to join us for coffee hour in Scott Hall, just across the courtyard. I note that this morning is the second morning of a 4-week experiment in family worship, which was held at 10 o'clock. You were invited to attend that earlier service as well. Following this service, there will be a brief communion service in the tradition of our Universalist ancestors. Please take a moment to turn your phones or other devices to their quietest settings. While beeps and buzzes can be distracting, we welcome your human noises, especially the sound of your singing, so please join in. Since 1701, people have gathered as this community to rest or recharge, to be challenged or affirm. Those people are like you. You belong here, maybe only for the next hour, but we hope for longer. We are happy to have you with us. I now invite you to take a deepening breath in and out. Continue to take a few more breaths and to begin to release whatever you need to let go of, to be more fully present to yourself, to one another, and the sacred in this time and place. A flame within a chalice is a primary symbol of the Unitarian Universalist faith tradition. To symbolize the light of reason and the warmth of community and the flame of hope, it is our tradition to begin our worship by kindling the flame of our chalice. The words for our chalice lighting today were written by Florence Caplow. As we kindle this flame, we honor and remember those who have passed into the mystery. Their brightness lives on in our vision. Their courage lives on in our commitments. And their love continues to bless the world through us. Now please rise in body or spirit to sing our opening hymn, number 358, Rank by Rank. Please remain standing to sing our song of affirmation, and then remain standing for our spoken affirmation. From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, through every land, by every tongue. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve all life with compassion, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. This is our great covenant, one with another and with our God. Please be seated.
This is the time in our service that we set aside for sharing the things which weigh deepest on our hearts, because we know that sharing a burden can feel as though it is lifted, and sharing a joy can feel as though joy is expanded. You can submit your joys or sorrows either online or by writing them in this book, which is normally at the back of our sanctuary. We sing from the hymn, Comfort Me, so that our joys and sorrows can be held with a song, and also so that you might have a resource, a song in your back pocket when things are tough or when things are wonderful. I begin with these sorrows of our gathered community. Tom Osfeld shares, "My mother is in the hospital after a bad fall. Please send her thoughts of healing, that she will get strong and be back on her feet soon." Share this, an anonymous concern, but one that I think we all share. Please pray for all the caregivers exhausted with worry. This from Stephen Taskovitz, who shares this concern for our friend Lacey Saskin, as she potentially has open heart surgery for a congenital heart defect correction. Let us now sing Comfort Me. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. We light one candle for all of the unspoken joys. None were submitted this week. Let us now sing with me. Sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. And we light one final candle for all of the sorrows too great to share and the joys too. Let us now sing, Speak for Me. Speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, oh my soul. Speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, oh my soul. I invite you now during this time in our service to return your attention to that deepening breath, that action that gives us life. I invite you too to focus on that which is supporting you, whether it is a pew or a chair or a bed, or the support of this community. O mystery beyond all understanding. Some call you Spirit, others call you God, and others have no name for you at all. We are reminded that our true first name, the name beyond and before all other names that we have been given, is Beloved. We give thanks for this day, for the sun, for the clouds and the leaves. We give thanks for the people sitting to our left and our right, and the food in our bellies, and the roof above our heads. We know that it did not have to be this way. We say thank you. We know that there are those in our community who mourn, who are healing, who are lonely, who are living with addiction. May each of us be empowered to reach out, to check in on that friend that we haven't checked in on in a very long time and say, "How are you?" And when the response sometimes inevitably comes, "I'm fine," may we ask again, "How are you?" And if we are the type of people who has a tough time reaching out, let us reach out when we need help. This helps to strengthen the bond of human community. We can each recall so quickly the war-torn places in our world. Gaza, other places racked by gun violence. Let us do what we can to work to bring peace to those war-torn parts of our world, pulling on the arc of the universe, bending it towards justice. We know too that we are human. We know that because of our breath, and we know that because we make mistakes. We put distance between ourselves, our authentic selves, and others, and perhaps the mystery. We say things that hurt. We neglect our friendships. The good news is because we are still breathing, there's always time to rebuild, always time to reconnect. In a world that tells us about all of our imperfections and our flaws, may we be reminded that we are loved and lovable, not in spite of these imperfections, but because of them. I say these words and do all things for love's sake. Let us now sit in the quiet space of this place, so that we might rest or recharge or pray the prayers of our own hearts silently. I'll keep track of the time. The novelist John Eagleman writes that there are 3 deaths. The first, when the body ceases to function. The second, when the body is consigned to the grave or the flame. And the third, when that person's name is spoken for the last time. By saying the names of our beloveds who have died, we work to keep their memory alive. If I mispronounce a name, I am so sorry, and I trust that those who knew them best know how to say their names correctly. At the end of the list of names that were submitted to me, I invite you to add into the silence the names which you carry in your hearts. Faith Waters, Benjamin McDonald, Patricia Greeley, Sydney Greeley, Sarah Gillis, Charles Willant, Edward Uftring, Armando Fernandez Schleisky Evans, Robert Gould, Alma Gould, Janet Warner, Catherine Werner, Gustav Warner, Ruth E. Decker, Mary Ellen Sullivan, Michael LeBrun, John Butler, Marjorie Butler, Barbara Taskovix, John Mylott, Selma and Philip Luttinger, Carl Roz and Ben Frutkoff, Carolyn Ortmeyer, Richard Ortmeyer, Cecil Roberts, Dorothy Roberts, Luis Evans, Rochelle Sivan, Kathleen Disbennett, Bryce Stockwell, Jean Stockwell, Marjorie Morey, Jerry Keist, Jack and Annie Dell Hess, Alice and Hugh Crowder, Lisa Barry, Bob Murphy, Jim Courtney, Harvey Rudman, Kathy Bobroff Cleaves, Mary, Franklin Porter, Mary Porter, Andy Porter, Rose and Al Altieri, Patricia Lutzi Marer, Emilio Mendez, Joyce Caroline Cox, Judy McCusker, Monrad and Roselle Hofferning, Gordon, Ellie, and Darla Ross, Bill Pelzek, Paul Verdenelia, Margaret Devine Mello, James Mello, Marilyn Devine, Karen Ahern, Mary Iodice, Barbara Pepin, Brian Sullivan, Charles Curry, Marcia Woodham, Tomas and Adelia Rodriguez, Joe and Livy Ishikawa, Barbara Ackley, Glenn Ackley, Dulcie Ackley, Bertha Lawrence, Dottie Marble, John and Harriet Whittemore, David Polakar, James Hamilton, David LeBlanc, Philip Park. What other names do we lift up today? We lift up to all those that are unnamed, but rest in our hearts. Let us now rise in body or spirit to sing hymn number 10, Immortal Love.
Amen.
You may be seated.
We have been richly blessed. We return a portion of our blessing to the ministries of this congregation so that we might be a witness to the free faith in Framingham and Metro West. If this is your first time joining us, you are invited to let the offering pass you by. The morning offering will now be joyfully given and gratefully received. Our reading for today is by Mary Wellemeyer, and the title of this reading is Pie with Spirits. This is the very pumpkin pie my grandmother made. Almost. She was a modern woman who knew how to follow recipes. Receipts, she called them, because they had been received. She had a rule for pie crust that was constant until from time to time it changed. I have that rule in turn, and it has moved on just a bit from where she left it. This is my special moment with her, departed a quarter century. As I work, I am all ages of myself. And the thought of my tall son comes to join us, though he hardly knew her. He makes pies with wild abandon, sculpting them from material and artistry. He has received pie somehow at the level of soul. The three of us make pie together, preheating the oven, cutting butter into flour, adding water, flouring a board, rolling the crust. To honor her, I follow the recipe. To honor him, I change just one thing. To honor myself, I take my time and smile.
Do you feel it? The way the earth feels right now. Crisp air, orange, burnt umber, vermilion, yellow leaves. The nights are colder now, the days too. The Celtic people say that this time of the year is a thin time of the year, when the separation between the living and dead is very thin. We feel it as things begin to wind down from the summer and we turn towards winter. This liminal time, betwixt and between. One of the sources of our religion is earth-centered religion. The Wiccan observance of Samhain is one of the cross-quarter days of the year. It is right between the autumnal equinox and the winter solstice. It is the belief of many pagans that this is the time of the year when the veil between this world and the afterlife is at its thinnest point. My colleague, Catherine Clarenbach, says that Samhain is all about the ethic of responsibility. Through calling out to ancestors and descendants, those who live in the shadows between the veil of life and death. We go to the garden for one final harvest of the plants that are hardiest, the plants that need a shock of frost to become their sweetest. One final harvest, too, of the dead stalks, vines, and blossoms. During this thin time, I wonder, who are your ancestors? What are their names? When did they live? What do you know about their lives? Is there someone that you look up to? What did they teach you? In the Christian liturgical year, this is a very rich time as well, with November 1st being All Saints' Day and November 2nd being All Souls' Day. All Saints' Day, rather, in its traditional observance, was a day to venerate all Christians who had died and were in heaven. There's one helpful definition of All Souls' Day. The tradition of the Feast of All Souls began independently of the Feast of All Saints. The Feast of All Souls owes its beginning to 7th century monks who decided to offer the Mass on the day after Pentecost for the deceased members of their community. In the late 10th century, the Benedictine monastery in Cluny chose to move this Mass to commemorate their dead to November 2nd, the day after the Feast of All Saints. And interestingly enough, and interesting for us today, is that there was actually a distinctly universalist expression of this day, more of a celebration of doctrine rather than of those who have died, at least according to one denominational book of services from 1878, which wrote in the language of the day, "It is recommended that the first Sunday of November in each year be set apart as All Souls Sunday for a special celebration of our distinguishing doctrine, the scriptural truth that all souls are God's children, and that finally, by God's grace attending them, they will all be saved from the power of sin and will live and reign with him forever in holiness and happiness." In some ways, each time that we gather, we pay tribute to that practice. When we say in the affirmation that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine, we really mean it. So today I want to invoke that common ancestor, that universalist direction of All Souls Day, and speak a little bit about our heritage, our faith's ancestors. Next week, you'll hear a slightly different expression of that line. Now, when it comes to core parts of our theology, in the name of our religious tradition, Unitarian Universalism, I find that almost every day I have no problem with that first part, Unitarianism. As traditionally stated, God is one, Jesus is human, and there is a single source of life. Does not require that much discussion, at least to me. Maybe to you it does. Divinity in everything. However, the universalism I can struggle with. In the 1950s in universalism, after I think it was a Parliament of World Religions visit at a certain point, universalism actually meant a universal world religion, which pointed to a truth that the Universalists had uncovered, that there was a truth in all of the world's religions. Again, this expression of universalism, I find I have no problem with. It is the universal salvation expression of universalism that I struggle with. For we know that good people make mistakes. They put up walls between themselves and others, and the mystery beyond all understanding. We all fail to miss the mark. Occasionally, I remember that in the Bible, in the New Testament especially, the word that is in there, in the Greek that it was originally written in, is a word that they use for sin that's more closely related to archery. We miss the mark. The good people who put distance between others, who sin in minor ways, who build walls, I am glad that universal salvation exists for them. Because while we are beautifully made, friends, we're also imperfect. We slip up all the time. The question about universal salvation comes to those who commit atrocities in their lifetime, who are responsible for large-scale suffering, for mayhem, for terror. Do they too go to the same source? Are they also saved? I think it is a situation where they are, perhaps, where they are loved and saved and made whole, not because of those actions, but in spite of them. Our Universalist ancestors were split on this as well. I don't know how they landed here in Framingham, but I do know that there was a controversy where there were two factions that were formed, the ultra-universalists and the restorationists. The year is about 1815. And throughout the United States, hellfire and brimstone preaching was ruling the land, and as a result, there was a reaction to that. Universalism was growing as people sought the message that there is no hell. It said that Hosea Ballou, one of the famous Universalist preachers, once had this interaction. Brother Ballou, as he was known, had a large church in Boston. However, he also did a fair bit of circuit riding preaching. One day after church, he found himself in a family's kitchen. A woman there asked him, "You really believe that all are saved just as they are?" And Ballou responded, "Well, of course, just as they are." She shook her head. She had been cleaning the house for the Sabbath. Brother Ballou asked, "What is that in your hand?" The woman responded, "It's my mop, of course." Ballou asked, "Are you going to mop the floor just as it is?" "Yes, of course, I mop it to clean it." Ballou responded, "Ah, you do not require it to be made clean before you will consent to mop it." Likewise, God saves souls to purify them. That's what salvation is for. The story, they say that God does not require people to be made pure in order that God may save them. Ballou's universal salvation was known as ultra-universalism, or if you want to get really heavy metal on it, death and glory universalism. Seriously, I have a t-shirt that looks like it's a metal band that says death and glory universalism on it, meaning that sin was published in this life, and at the moment of death, all went to the same place. And of course, anytime there is a strong belief that is stated, people will say that they disagree with it. So preachers started preaching on different views as to when this universal salvation happened. Disagreeing with Ballou were John Murray and Elhanan Winchester, who believed in the eventual restoration of all souls to God, but only after a period of spiritual penance, soul cleaning, and retribution. In other words, everyone eventually went to heaven, but the ascent might be longer, especially for the especially wicked and sinful. I think one source I remember reading said up to a period of 50,000 years. These folks were known as the Restorationists. This led to division and continued name-calling, and I don't really recall where the debate ended up. A good colleague of mine who is a jokester when it comes to General Assembly makes joke ribbons for General Assembly, our nation's annual gathering. And he makes these ribbons for the name tags that we wear at these conventions. He's made a few over the years, but the most popular one was the year that he put Restorationist and Ultra-Universalist on those ribbons. just to make sure that we still have the debate ongoing in modern Unitarian Universalism. I understand why we want to keep this debate alive. We want to know if those who inflict so much pain will be punished. We feel that that could be justice for those who suffered. Universal salvation is about the ultimate inclusiveness of God's love. Universalist hope says that the hell that they experience is actually on this earth and is present in this world when greed, violence, and exploitation wreak havoc on human well-being and the earth. That love has the power to ultimately transform all injustice and purify even the most distant soul, even if it takes most of eternity to do so. In a book written now about a decade ago called A House for Hope, Rebecca Parker writes that human beings need to be saved from the consequences of human sin, not from God's punishing wrath. She continues on to say that salvation comes through the powers of life and goodness present within us and around us. Salvation is in our hands. That wholeness rests with us. Another theologian, Walter Rauschenbusch, wrote, "When theological definitions speak of rebellion against God as the common characteristic of all sin, it reminds us of the readiness of despotic governments to treat every offense as treason. Our universe is not a despotic monarchy. It is a spiritual commonwealth with God in the midst of us. Not only do we need salvation," Parker claims, but so does the earth. Earth needs to be repaired from damage made by us humans. Humanity needs healing and repair from legacies of injustice. We are the cause, and we can also be the cure. Salvation does not come when something is innocent and pure. Salvation manifests itself, Parker writes, in wisdom, persistence, and not allowing evil to operate in its habitual patterns. To take this one step further, salvation comes through the gift of human powers and capacities used to heal energy, comfort the afflicted, create justice, and offer love. Parker closes by saying that salvation is not something one possesses individually. It is something that one participates in communally, including in communion with those who have come before. My friends gathered here, this tradition of universal salvation is a part of our inheritance as a faith tradition. So what do we do with this inheritance? How do we apply what we preach on a Sunday morning to Monday morning, Friday evening, or Wednesday afternoon? First is, it is okay to not know. It is okay to struggle with a core tenet of our faith. Remember that there was a story somewhere about two ministers discussing creeds. One was a creedal faith, serving a faith that recites a creed, and the other was a minister who wasn't of that faith tradition. And that first minister said, it must be easy, it must be wonderful to have a creed that you believe in, that you just accept wholesale. And the creedal minister said, oh, you don't think that we struggle with that? Of course we do. Two, I think it means that generally we are open and oriented towards love with all that we encounter. Unless that other force, that other person, that other community is oriented towards dehumanizing and demeaning who we are. It means that all are a part of this divine creation in this life and after it. And that feels like it takes some guts to say. And finally, when we focus on an all-conquering love, an all-powerful love, it means we need to learn how we might be love's hands in the world. It gives us direction. How do we love the hell out of this world? May it be so, and amen. So let us rise in body or spirit to sing our last hymn. The angle is all wrong. I can't see what it is, but you can. 103. Thank you. As our service draws to a close, I remind you that about 10 minutes after we are finished with this service, there will be a brief service of communion in the Universalist tradition. We have gluten-free bread. That's the only option we have. We have grape juice and wine as well. If you did bring a picture, please come up and grab it as soon as the service is done. Close with these words by Jan Richardson. For those who walked with us. For those who walked with us, this is a prayer. For those who have gone ahead, this is a blessing. For those who touched and tended us, who lingered with us while they lived, this is a thanksgiving. For those who journey still with us in the shadows of awareness, in the crevices of memory, in the landscape of our dreams, this is a benediction. Go in peace.